This is the Fantasy Roadshow.
We are live. I repeat, we are live. Welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Roadshow. This episode is brought to you by Rule 1 Proteins. If you don't know, now you know. Rule 1's proteins is the best in the business. They got the best protein powder, the best supplements, the best vitamins. You name it, they got it. Go check them out at www.rule1proteins.com. You guys know the drill. My name is Truck, and today I am not inside of a truck, but I am joined, as always, by Culls and Shane O'Mac, and we are talking wide receiver rankings today. This is definitely meat and potatoes of the fantasy draft season, so I'm excited to talk to you guys about this. Culls, how you doing today, buddy?
All good. We are live.
Yeah, we forgot
We are
that. We
live.
are live.
I just don't always want to cut him off because the truck stops talking when we cut him off.
Yeah, I lose my rhythm.
We are live. I'm good. Wide receiver rankings, pre-camp wide receiver rankings.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, should be pretty straight and forward at the top. There won't be too much movement there, but once we get to the bottom in camp, there may be some shuffling around. But yeah, I think after 182 drafts, the wide receiver rankings are pretty dialed in. Mine are always gonna have a little bit of best ball in them, so redraft season, that's just, I'm not gonna sacrifice my best ball portfolio for redraft rankings ever. So there may be a little bit of angle, and as we talk through that, there's some shuffling around, but yeah, that's where we're at. Shane,
Fair enough. Shane,
you?
yeah, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Back from vacation in the mountains, so
Same.
Good week out there. So
Yeah,
I
you
gotta
lucky
tell you-
sons of bitches. I've been the only one at home slaving away at work, and you guys
In an
are out.
18-wheeler.
Yeah, an
I gotta-
18-wheeler. You guys are having fun.
I got to tell you though, I had a first experience there, and it's going to seem probably like nothing to you guys because you probably have already had this, but I had my first experience at Raising Cane's. Oh,
Stop.
I mean,
Dude, I am on hour 70. Hour 70 of my fast. You mentioning Raising Cane's right now just put my stomach in a pretzel. That sounds delicious. How was it?
that buttery Texas toast they serve. I mean, that's a game changer.
Say it again. Say it again.
Yeah, Truck would
man.
literally shit himself if he went and got Cane's right now.
Yeah, I would
hilarious.
house 2 Caniac combos. I would
Shit
house 2
everywhere.
of those.
Like, you would not make it to a bathroom, guaranteed.
Yeah. So
Shane, that's an LSU thing, right?
I had no idea. I have had
is it Raising Cane's is out down south?
BatonRouge, literally.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's like the first ever Cane's is on our campus.
Okay, yeah,
That's awesome.
I've
Started
had
in Baton Rouge. It's an LSU
no idea. I've had Zaxby's, and Raising Cane's is much better.
So do you want to hear about Raising Cane's then? Since
Yeah, give me a little Raising Cane's.
Let's do fun facts. What do you got?
So I was there before it went national, and this is what happened to me. This is what happens to the majority of people that are from out of town and come to LSU, and unless you're a true sicko. But first semester, I basically ate Cane's for every meal. You get hooked on it, and every drunk meal's at Cane's, and then every hangover meals at Cane's, and then if you're on campus, you just get Cane's for lunch because it's quick. So I probably ate Cane's at least once a day, but probably even more for the first semester.
Oh my God.
And then you just don't want to. I mean, for me, I didn't want to look at Cane's. I'd still go every once in a while, maybe. I wouldn't even say once a week because then a Chipotle came in, and I'm about Chipotle. But literally, anyone that went to LSU's that never knew what Cane's was, got addicted to it, and then eventually kind of grossed himself out after eating it twice a day. But yeah, that's a staple in Baton Rouge. It's literally the story of Todd Graves. He always had a vision of chicken tender restaurant, specializing in chicken tenders, and literally that was, I believe, he went to college, maybe I'm sure LSU, went to LSU, and that was like his senior project. No one believed in him. Banks wouldn't give him money. And he just said, like, fuck this, and literally went out to Alaska and worked on a boat. Like, one of the most, like, dangerous cash jobs is working on a salmon boat. And he was working, 20-hour days, literally 22-hour days on a salmon boat out in Alaska. It was between like that and oil and gas, like working on the rigs in terms of just like, how do I make the most cash? So he did that in Alaska, made enough money to where he bought one on LSU's campus and started it, and then it turned into 2, and now it's like 200 nationwide, and he owns all of them. It's private still.
They are popping up in my area in Chicago like crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, like all over the place in Chicago, and I love it. Love it.
He's a huge booster now, obviously, and a huge part of NIL. I mean, like, he was every billboard in Baton Rouge, Canes, Les Miles. Now he has a bunch of athletes, but yeah, man, he's. Eat more Canes because it directly goes to more 5 stars at LSU. Literally. But yeah, that was a good start. I love that we just gave a little shout out to Canes and the LSU Tigers. We're going to need to make a badass short, and I'll get it in the right hands at LSU. And hopefully that'll get us some recognition down there in the Bayou. Down there in the
Bayou. Go Tigers. All right.
Tigers.
Well,
wait, we can end that short. We can end that short with a Go Tigers.
I like it. I'll soundbite that one. But yeah, we're here talking wide receiver rankings, so let's jump right in. Let's
do it.
Let's get busy.
Speaking of Tigers, what's
up, brother? What's up, brother?
Speaking of Tigers, Jamar Chase, wide receiver 1. That's Truck and I both reflect that. Shano Max got him at 2. We have that flipped with CeeDee Lamb. Can't go wrong with CeeDee Lamb, honestly. But for me, Jamar Chase is due for a huge year. He's the most physically talented receiver in the NFL. When him and Burrow on the field, they just eat. Burrow's going to have a bounce back year. I think he put on 15 pounds. He says he feels stronger than he ever has. He's on a mission to show that he's the best or one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He recently was on Pardon My Take, Barstool podcast, and you can just tell, like, his confidence is always at an all-time high. He knows his ability. He knows who he is. He knows what he is as a teammate. Bounce back year is coming for the Bengals. Jamar Chase is going to, catch 10 balls a game, have 150 to 200-yard games, and score once or twice. I think his biggest year of his career, which I don't know what that would look like. I'll kind of let Truck take over from here while I look at some numbers, but I can give you a projection in about 2 minutes.
Yeah, so I'll break it down. I actually dug into this because I wanted to have something concrete to kind of go off with this, because I love Jamar Chase this year. We saw what he did his rookie year with the only fully healthy season with Joe Burrow. 81 catches, 1,455 yards, and 13 touchdowns. He was wide receiver 3 as a rookie. Joe Burrow, it has been his pass attempts per game have been going up every year. I think last year was at like 36 something. I could see him getting up to the 38, 39, almost 40 range. And over the last two seasons, they only played 38 games together. Burrow only played 10 games last year. Chase only played 12 games the year before. So, like, I kind of isolated those games and looked at, like, what are real expectations, because we haven't seen the elite production like since a couple of years since he was a rookie. So in those 38 games, 10 of them he had over 120 yards. 11 games he had over 25 fantasy points. He had 2 games over 50 fantasy points. He actually, let me break this down for you. He is out of the top scoring wide receivers of all time. He is number 4 on that list. The only one higher than him is Tyreek Hill. A couple of years ago, I think it was 2020. So the elite production, what he's capable of, we've seen it before. Game-breaking numbers. Last year, week 5, he had 19 targets, 15 receptions, 192 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Shane, can you believe that he wasn't the wide receiver 1 that week? Trivia question, Shane. Who was the wide receiver 1 that week that he had 15 catches, 192 yards, and 3 touchdowns as Jamar Chase. Who outscored him in week 5?
In week 5 of last year?
Yes.
Week 5. Ooh. Michael Pittman?
Nope. It's DJ Moore. DJ Moore ended up outscoring him. He had 200 and
against the Commanders.
Yes, correct. I couldn't believe it when I saw that stat line. I was like, dude, how was he not wide receiver 1 that week? That's insane. But that's the type of upside you have with Jamar Chase. I mean, the guy's about as elite as it gets, and I'm really expecting 1,500 yards and over 12 touchdowns. The same type of caliber year that he had that rookie year. If Jamar and Joe Burrow stay healthy, sky's the limit for these guys. And
Okay.
I'm drafting Jamar at 101.
Okay, I'll put him at 110 catches, 1875 yards, and 15 touchdowns.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. Sounds good. I like that projection. Shane, what's your deal with you got CeeDee Lamb over Jamar? You are a Cowboys fan. CeeDee Lamb was the wide receiver 1 last year. What's your reasoning there? I'm just curious.
So for me, it was, who is scored the 3rd most fantasy points ever by a wide receiver? CeeDee Lamb.
Ooh.
Last year. So
he's back. Calls is back.
So
could you hear me at all during that portion?
Nope. You just went silent.
Holy shit. I would have been muted anyways because I was cussing like a fucking sailor. I said some bad things. If we have any mouth readers out there, please don't read it and expose what I was just saying.
Yeah, I'm surprised you don't just take that microphone and throw it against the wall one of these days.
I was close to shutting this. It was going to be you guys just saying what I would say. Truck's done enough drafts with me that he could probably make sense of my rankings, but that was very close. I'm good now. I'm calm.
Okay, good. What were you about to say? Did you had to take there for Jamar? You were going to say something after your
110,
projections?
1875, and 15. That's the type of year I think he has. Healthy, of course. That's what goes without saying. But he's the best. He's the most talented player in the NFL. He's in his prime. So is Joe Burrow. They are both going to fashion shows in Paris, just fucking looking swagged out. They're going to take over the NFL. So this year, you're going to see exactly why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Done.
And then Shane just kind of broke down CeeDee Lamb having last year. What was that game last year?
He had the 3rd most fantasy points in a season ever by a wide receiver, and that was
cumulative. Yes.
So the first 4 games, though, he was not targeted heavily. His target volume was pretty low, and I remember that because I got him in a couple of trades from owners because of his slow start. But this is a guy who has not missed any games over the last 2 years. He's got a quarterback that's going to be throwing the ball over 600 times this year with no running game. There's no strong threat of a wide receiver 2 target in that offense. He's got explosive capability, 5+ games of 30 points or more last year. I think he's just set up for such a heavy target volume. And they move him all over, in different positions so he doesn't get isolated in a certain spot either. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one thing he did last year really, really well was score touchdowns. I mean, what was his touchdown total last year? Was it 13, 14? I can't remember off the top of my head.
12.
Yeah.
12 touchdowns. It seemed like 15. I mean, the guy was scoring almost every game. So, but for me, is Ferguson going to take a step up? Brandon Cooks another year in this offense. I'm not sure. I love CeeDee Lamb, but if he's going 1 overall, I'm not going to be taking him. I'm taking Jamar. So
135, 17, 49, and 12. He also had 2 rushing touchdowns.
Okay. All right.
So
yeah,
14 all day. But so here's my thing with Lamb. Fantasy football, especially creating content, I think everyone knows this. You're going to look very smart a lot of times. You're going to look very stupid a lot of times. There's no in between. This was one of the things last year that made me very smart was CeeDee Lamb, the type of year he had. The only hesitation for me with him and why Chase is there is because I think Chase and Burrow are so good that they're going to have a bounce back year. And then with CeeDee Lamb, it's the question mark for me with CD is this Dak and CD contract situation. Like, there's too much drama going on right now with the Cowboys. And then the run game is obviously in a bad spot. So like those two question marks, I just would hate to see a season where the Cowboys have this fucking conversation going on the national media. Is Dak going to be the quarterback? Is CD? CD said he's not showing up to camp until he gets extended. So like, I don't like any of that drama right now. That's why he's not wide receiver 1. I personally think they're going to get it done with Dak and CD. So hopefully that happens, and then things can kind of move on from there. I don't think I'll move him ahead of Chase. I have him ranked where that deal does get done and there's not that drama. But as of right now, that's my like hesitation with him is I could see the Cowboys having a fucking disaster of a year. That being said, Jerry usually reels it in. He understands getting that conversation away and getting the bills printed. He's a businessman, so I think he should be able to quiet all that noise before the season. But yeah, the run game worries me. Cooks is aging. We've been saying that about him for a while. I think you can still count him in for 700 yards and 7 touchdowns, something like that, especially with Tolbert on the rise. CeeDee's going to be a huge part of that offense. They're going to need Ferguson to step up. I could see a situation where the Commanders are the number 2 team in the division and jump the Cowboys this year. So because of those worries, that's why CeeDee's wide receiver 2 for me.
Fair enough.
So yeah, I don't know. I have Jefferson at 3. You guys both have Tyreek at 3 and Jefferson at 4. I just kind of punted on Tyreek. I guess I'm just fading him a little bit this year. I don't really like Tyreek. I just think he's outstanding. He's incredible for fantasy. I just think he's a loose cannon a little bit. And, I wouldn't say I'm the most like, my moral compass isn't leading me away from Tyreek. I would draft a scumbag if I think, they're going to be on the field and produce in fantasy football. I've had Deshaun Watson on teams. I've had plenty of,
Uh-oh.
There he goes again.
I think that's his internet this time. He's freezing. He's gonna break something. He's gonna break something. I'm telling you. All right. Well, I guess Shane, why do you have Tyreek at 3 and Jefferson at 4? I have
we
my own
lose
reason.
me or you or
we lost you. Buddy.
That was you. That was your internet, not your microphone.
We're
Don't
like
break
so
anything.
close to having a fucking awesome episode, and just tech is getting in the way. It's driving me fucking nuts.
Yeah, I agree. Do you want to finish that thought, or should we move on?
No, go ahead.
Okay. All right.
I'm just fading Tyreek simply by putting him at 6. I'm fading him this year. I love Garrett Wilson. His ceiling for me is just as high as any of these other guys. He's just as talented as that. If Rodgers is healthy, which I pray to God he is, just for the sake of the NFL, then Garrett Wilson's going to have a monster year. So because of that, I have him at wide receiver 4. I am going to be targeting Garrett Wilson because dude, like I don't even need to say anything. Look at the catches he makes with Zach Wilson at quarterback, throwing the ball like out of catch radius, and he just still somehow makes a play. Like he's as good, if not better, He might be the best in terms of just like making a wide receiver in a lab. Like he might be that in terms of like best in the NFL. So he has one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Hopefully, again, he's healthy and his arm is still strong at his old age, which I think it is. So Garrett Wilson could be wide receiver 1 this year.
I'm thinking about bumping Wilson up like 2 or 3 spots because when I was looking at his numbers last year, like
insane,
it was a little surprising to me. He only had 3 touchdowns. So
yeah,
I could totally see a world this year where he jumps to 12 touchdowns. And if he makes that jump, then he's gonna be in the top 4 probably.
Yeah, I could put him ahead of Jefferson, honestly. Like, he's my CD Lamb of last year. If there is a guy that you're gonna say, I don't know, what's his ADP or what's his is he wide receiver 6, 7, something like that?
He's being drafted as wide receiver 8 on Underdog.
Yeah. So if you're telling me someone out of the top 5 who's wide receiver 1, like CD was last year, 10 out of 10 times, I'm telling you, it's Garrett. He'll be on pretty much every team of mine because of that. And that's why I like to, like, you'll see in my rankings, sometimes it may be away from industry consensus a little bit, but all I'm saying is at ADP, Tyreek Hill is off my radar and Garrett Wilson is very much on my radar.
Yep.
And that's the only way I can really reflect that in rankings. So that's why I do that sometimes.
Yeah, and I share the same sentiment about Garrett Wilson. And for me, Tyreek, we've just seen him do it so many times. I mean, last year, in the first 12 weeks, I think he only had like 3 games under 100 yards. And he just scores touchdowns over 100 yards. It's just what he does. He can do it in his sleep. And I don't think much changes with that situation. So that's why I couldn't really drop him lower than 3. But I want to move Garrett up. Like, I agree with you. Everything you said, I agree wholeheartedly. I think if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, Garrett Wilson should automatically be a top 5 guy because of his ability and what he can do on the field. So I want to move him up, but Justin Jefferson, he's the one I could move down because I do think the quarterback play is going to hinder Justin Jefferson. I mean, he's a great receiver, and we've seen great receivers still produce fantasy numbers with a subpar quarterback. But someone like Garrett Wilson, I feel like I'm going to be moving him up, and I might be moving Justin down.
And even if Rodgers misses a couple of games, I feel a lot better this year about Tyrod Taylor stepping in instead of, Zach Wilson or Trevor Siemian or Tim Boyle. That makes me feel a little bit better if it's 2 or 3 games.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, go ahead and move Garrett Wilson up for me.
Where do you want him?
Put Justin Jefferson where Garrett Wilson is.
Swap those 2?
Yeah, swap those 2 for me, please. Live on the pod. We're making adjustments. We're talking through this. And this is how we get good rankings. You kind of got to hammer it out and
hammer it out.
Hammer it out. You know what I mean? I like that.
Yeah, so that's Garrett Wilson will be on a lot of my teams. If I don't have Jamar Chase, I'm having Garrett Wilson first round guaranteed. That's just how it's going to look. Another guy, Amon-Ra. I don't have too much to say about him. Let me actually pull up Slack. Sorry. So I don't have much to say about Amon-Ra. That Lions offense is going to be exactly kind of what we saw last year, maybe a little more dynamic with Gibbs, but we know what that offense is. Josh Reynolds is gone, and Jamison Williams should have a bigger role. He's a first-round draft pick. He's good enough to really thrive in that role. But Amon-Ra probably just copy paste what he did last year. I don't know if it'll be any better, and I don't know if it'll be any worse. So he's a pretty safe option there. We know what that offense looks like. So despite injury, it should look the exact same as last year. But the person I want to talk about is Drake London. Wide receiver 7. So does Trucks, and Shane Mack has him as wide receiver 9. I love him this year. He's going to have, it's just one of those situations where when you're a wide receiver, you like to eat. You're probably a pretty ego-driven type player, performance-driven player. And Drake London has got just as much. He's probably got the biggest catch radius out of anyone in this list. Maybe Garrett Wilson could challenge him on that, but he's going to have the best quarterback he's ever had. Those guys, what I was alluding to with ego, like, when he has his opportunity to pop off, now that Kirk Cousins is throwing the ball, he's going to seize it. He's so hungry to just finally have a quarterback that can get him the ball, and he's going to ball out. He's going to be great. Kyle Pitts is going to be great. Bijan's going to be insane. I think that team wins the division relatively easily, and it's going to be a fantasy football wet dream owning Falcons players this year.
Drake London is single-handedly one of the main reasons why I'm totally okay drafting in the back half of drafts. Like, if I'm on the back turn and I can get Drake London as my number 1 pick, I am thrilled going into that second round. Drake London, to me, has all the talent in the world. I mean, we saw what he was able to do with the quarterback. I mean, terrible quarterback play, and he was still able to get 900 yards. Like it's ridiculous. Kirk Cousins throws 4,000 yards or 25 touchdowns in his sleep. Like he does it every year, guaranteed. So like if Kirk Cousins throws for 4,000 yards or 25 touchdowns, Drake London's having 1,500 yards plus 10 to 12 touchdowns. Like that's where he's going to be at.
Yeah, Truck, I can guarantee a back-to-back championship right now on the podcast. Hopefully no one from BML listens, but I guarantee a championship that with a keeper of Breece Hall and Kincaid, if we were at the end of the draft and we're able to go Garrett Wilson, Drake London, and then in the third, Josh Allen, and start our team with Josh Allen, partner up Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, and then have Drake London and Kincaid paired up with Allen, I guarantee we'd win that again. And we would just be in a position to where once keepers start again, we could reach a little bit on some of these guys like a Jonathan Brooks, because it's just I guarantee we would win that with that.
Yeah,
start
easy money, money. Absolutely.
But that was that Garrett Wilson, Drake London is what you just reminded me on. That's where that thought came from, because you're right. Like Garrett Wilson is at the end of the first, Drake London's at that turn, and they're both as talented as anyone in this receiver in hopefully better situations, and hopefully people are fading them because they think both coming off injury and for all these wrong reasons, or all these valid reasons. But I'm totally comfortable with the quarterbacks that have been doing it at a high level their entire career to get them the ball,
Yeah, I mean, we saw what he did with Justin Jefferson. 1,400 yards, 1,600 yards, 1,800 yards. Yep. Like Justin Jefferson was the 22nd overall draft pick. Drake London was the 8th overall.
Yeah.
Like he was the highest graded receiver of his draft class. I'm not directly comparing him to Justin Jefferson, but that's the type of talent he is. Those are the type of expectations I have going into the season.
Yeah, for sure. I want to move my rankings here a little bit. I really don't have anything to say about A.J. Brown. I don't know if you guys do. Wide receiver 8, we kind of know what that offense is going to be. I'm going to move my rankings around because I think Nabers has a better year than Harrison. And honestly, probably DJ Moore. I'll leave that. Yeah, I'll do that too.
You just wanted to make sure I wasn't the highest person on Nabers.
No, I've been thinking that for a while, that I would prefer. I genuinely think Nabers has a better year than Harrison. So, you have them 1-2. Okay. Talk about Harrison, Truck. You have him ranked as your wide receiver 9. Shane O'Mac's at wide receiver 10. I'm at wide receiver 15. Go ahead and talk about Harrison here.
Yeah, I mean, with Harrison, obviously the hype is real. Like this is the highest position any rookie wide receiver has ever been drafted in fantasy drafts. Actually, Malik Nabers in the 4th round would be the highest drafted rookie wide receiver ever, but now he's surpassed by Marvin Harrison, who's in the back end of the first, beginning of the second. And to me, it's all about the situation he's going into with Kyler Murray at quarterback, with the Cardinals having basically zero depth at wide receiver. You got Greg Dortch, who's a talented wide receiver, don't get me wrong, but he is not going to compete with Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison is going to come in 25+% target share, approaching the 30% is my honest opinion. And obviously you got McBride there, but that just opens up the field more so that teams aren't honing in on Harrison. So I'm expecting Marvin to have that, that Jamar Chase, that Justin Jefferson type of rookie year, 1,300 yards, 1,400 yards, a bunch of touchdowns. I mean, we've seen what this guy was able to do in college, and we know what type of work ethic he has. And I think that translates to the NFL really well. And I'm excited to see what he does. I'd be drafting him depending on where that back end and early second work out, but I'd be totally fine having Marvin Harrison as my first wide receiver on my fantasy roster if I go running back early.
Yeah, almost 220 targets are available in that wide receiver room this year. I mean, what you said, like, I think close to 30% target share isn't out of the question. He's got a good quarterback that looked good in his first year back from the knee injury. I think he is a lock for obviously 1,000+ yards, but I think he's a double-digit touchdown. I think you're looking at 12 touchdowns easily.
Yeah, and for me, like Nabers, like I'm the lowest on him right now, but I do want to move him up. I'm just trying to find the right spot to put him. He's just as talented as Harrison. I mean, we saw all through draft season what everyone was talking about. It was Harrison, Nabers, Harrison, and I'm just really excited to see what Nabers can do. My only issue is that the Giants, Daniel Jones has never supported a 1,000-yard receiver. This is the best receiver they've had since OBJ, and can Daniel Jones stay healthy and turn it around and be the quarterback of the future for the Giants? There's a lot of questions around it. I know Nabers is going to get a very similar target share than what I just described for Harrison, so I do like Nabers. I do want to move him up, but I just can't find the right spot to put him yet.
What I like about Nabers, and Cole's, you can back me up because you've seen a lot more Nabers tape than I have, but it seems to me, and if you're in a PPR league especially, like there's going to be a lot of easy catches, like a lot of bubble screens, a lot of short throws behind, give him the ball maybe on handoffs and reverses. Like it seems to me, whether it's Daniel Jones or anybody, like there's going to be a lot of easy stuff, a lot of easy catches. He's not going to have a large ADOT to be successful.
Yeah. Malik Nabers is more talented than Marvin Harrison Jr. He just doesn't have that name attached to him. But physically, like he's the more talented one. I've said it a million times. First of all, like Odell Beckham could not hold Malik Nabers' jockstrap. He's not even close to the talent that Malik Nabers is. I've said it before that Chase, Nabers, Justin Jefferson in that order is how you would put their athleticism in talent, pure talent. Chase has Burrow to make him look good. So I do think Chase is probably the more dynamic receiver than Nabers, but that's literally how good he is right now. Today, I would say that he's better than Justin Jefferson from a pure talent standpoint. So given the amount of targets he's going to get, and as Shane said, they're just going to try to get him the ball as much like as in open space and just here's the ball, let's go for it. What did they say? I have not been watching the Giants Hard Knocks off-season Hard Knocks yet, but I heard
I wanted to bring that up in the beginning of the episode because I didn't watch it either, and I wanted to know if either one of you guys did.
No, I haven't yet. Did you, Shane?
No, I haven't.
But anyways, I've heard the GM say like I don't have a $30 million quarterback, or I don't have a $15 million running back, a $30 million quarterback to hand it off to a $15 million running back. So them getting Singletary, the cheaper option, and letting Daniel Jones, sling it and see if he's their guy. That's what their intentions are this year. I think Daniel Jones is good. I genuinely do. I think he has the ability on the ground to open up his passing game, and he's a competent enough thrower to get the ball to Nabers. Someone who's just going to need targets, and he's going to have a monster year because their offense is literally going to work through him. And that's why I have him higher than, or I'm so confident that he's going to be higher than Harrison is. Like Harrison has Connor, they have Trey McBride, Michael Wilson's going to have a good season, potentially, or he's at least a good enough player. Zay Jones, Dortch, you have like weapons around Harrison, which should in theory make the offense better and all ships rise together. But I genuinely don't think Kyler is a good quarterback and has a good arm. He can't throw the 15 and out. That's kind of my litmus test for, are you a good NFL quarterback? He doesn't have the strength to throw a 15 and out. I don't show me him on film throwing a 15 and out, and I'll say I'm wrong, but I don't think that exists. And he's so dependent on his video game type legs that, I'm not confident that Marvin Harrison Jr. is gonna have a great season, gonna have a great fantasy season just because of his name, when I'm not confident in the Cardinals. Like I don't think that Kyler Murray is the quarterback of the future for the Cardinals. So, you know, I could see him having a bad season, the Cardinals being out of position to make the playoffs, or just have a good season, have wins this season, and then them trading him to the Raiders and putting themselves in a position to get a quarterback at the beginning of the draft next year. Like I don't believe in Kyler Murray. Therefore, I don't believe in Marvin Harrison, who needs someone that can throw the ball downfield to have success.
Yeah, I share a lot of those similar thoughts with Daniel Jones and the Giants. Like everything you just described with Kyler Murray is kind of how I feel about Daniel Jones and the Giants. So I'm excited to see how this all shakes out. They're both in similar situations with questionable things about their situation. So
sounds like
I'm
we
excited.
need to throw a pod bet on the board. Something along the lines of, will Daniel Jones be the quarterback of the Giants next year, and will Kyler Murray be the quarterback of the Cardinals next year?
I will gladly take that bet.
So I don't know if it's just two separate ones, yes and no, or if it's how that works, but
we'll work it out.
I would like to bring up the Truck's first brain fart of the episode.
Damn.
MKE Evans.
Milwaukee Evans.
Milwaukee Evans.
Yeah.
But anyways, Davante Adams, I want to talk about him, wide receiver 9. He had basically, if you just thought like we're talking to someone, you would say like an absolute disaster of a year last year for the Raiders. Never had a quarterback really settle in. They could never really figure it out as an offense. And he put up a wide receiver 10, 103 catches, 1144 yards, and 8 touchdowns. So that is a bad year for Davante Adams. He's 31. He's not exiting. I mean, if he's exiting his prime, it's hardly. So I think that him having a bad year being wide receiver 10, I'm not going to project him to be outside of that. I think he hopefully has a better year. Are they going to start at AOC? Are they going to start Minshew? I don't really know or care, to be honest. So whoever it's going to be, they're going to try to run the ball with Zamir. And if he has any kind of success running the ball vertically, which I think he can, I mean, he's like I've said it a million times. He's a boulder. It's what he is. He's not going to, I don't think he's going to be amazing, but I think he's going to maybe have enough success on the ground to open up. He's certainly going to get the ball enough, but to open up the pass game to where you can throw it outside to Davante, and if you get it close to him, he's going to make some shit happen. So I don't know. I'm not super high on the Raiders this year, but in a bad season, he put up those 100 plus, 1150 and 8. So I'm not taking him out of the top 10.
And I mean, I got him at 12. Shane, you got him at 12. I'll just speak on that. Like, that's kind of where I see his floor. Like last year, he was in that range, and it doesn't get any worse than that. Like, it's just
crazy.
That's what it is. So if the Raiders do have success, he will have an even better season and finish inside the top 10. I'm just not banking on that success from the Raiders, and I'm okay drafting him at his ADP. I don't think his price is too high. I think you know what you're going to get with him, and I'm totally fine with that. But that's kind of why I have him outside the top 10, but still inside the top 12.
We already had a bet on Daniel Jones to be the starting quarterback, so Kyler Murray. That's awesome.
Okay, that's hilarious. Should we erase that first one? Is that first one null and void now? Because or do we wait until Rasheed Rice gets it?
Yeah, we got to wait till the
official ruling comes in.
Yeah,
that's fair.
yeah.
That's fair.
That kind of sucks.
Yeah,
it's probably null and void. That's really funny. So that's Devonta. Do you want? I don't think we need to really add anything there, do we?
No, I feel like it's you know what you're going to get with him, and I feel like we covered it pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can talk about Olave. I don't really want to. I have him as wide receiver 11, kind of because of what I said about Devonta. Like, he had the Saints kind of had a disaster of a season last year. I don't really believe in Derek Carr, to be honest. I think they're pretty bad this year again. But last year, Olave quietly put up a wide receiver 16, 87 catches, 1123, and 5 touchdowns. If that's going to be his worst while he's entering his physical prime, he's a clear-cut wide receiver 1 on his team. Like, Puka's not a clear-cut wide receiver 1 on his team in my mind. He's probably number 1, but I could see Cooper Kupp being 1.5, something like that, or there's nobody to compete with Olave. He's the guy. Puka, I don't know that he's going to be like clear-cut wide receiver 1, maybe because of his youth. But if Cooper Kupp shows to have a lot of chemistry and any juice left, then Stafford and him have that built-up chemistry where that's going to take away a ton from Puka being a true wide receiver 1, So
yeah, I mean that's my feeling about it. Is I do think Cooper Kupp, and this doesn't really reflect in my rankings because I'm trying to find a way to move Cooper Kupp up as well, but I think Cooper's being slept on, and I think Puka is being overhyped. What we saw last year was kind of an outlier, in my opinion. Cooper Kupp was never really fully healthy. He's going to be fully healthy in the start of the season. And, I mean, he is older. He's, like 31 now, so 31. That's going against him. But the connection with Stafford and Kupp is undeniable, and I think people are going to be a little surprised at I just don't think Puka's going to quite reach what he did last year if Cooper Kupp has a fully healthy season, which is a lot to ask for at this point. So
I'm going to bring this up again just because we're talking about this division, and I still don't see it making sense in my brain. Do you have the Rams? How do you have that division finishing?
I haven't statted out the wins and losses for that division yet, but in just
off the top of your head,
off the top of my head, I would say 49ers, Rams, Cardinals, Seahawks.
Okay, that makes me feel better because I was thinking, I was under the impression of you having the Cardinals as the worst team in the division, and I know you're high on Connor. Now you're high on Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah,
I just can't see a world where you can be high on all of them and them be last in the division. So having them above the Seahawks makes me feel a little bit better.
And I'm also toying with the idea that the Rams and Cardinals, to me, could be flipped. It's if the Cardinals figure it out and they start gelling with the weapons they have, I think there's a realistic opportunity for them to finish second in the division beyond the 49ers.
Okay, so you have that by the time we do divisional breakdowns, I have a feeling that Cardinals will be number 2 in Truck's rankings. If they're
quite
good,
possible,
then that's going to happen. But if Kyler's bad, if Kyler's good, then that's where they should finish. Like the Rams, realistically, should not be. They're not like adding pieces in the defense that are going to make them this contender. I don't think they're just going to be the Rams of what they were last year. Probably, 500, maybe a couple games over 500 team. So. Geno Smith, we know how we feel there. Like, if the Cardinals are any good, then they should be second in this division. Like, they're ready to take a step forward. Will they? We're going to find out. So
yeah, that's well said. Well said.
Well, that's all I got really for that. For the whole Puka Olave conversation. I mean, Waddle, I don't really want to say too much there. I know Shane O'Mac's gotten burned on him last year and a little sour, so he's got him as wide receiver 17. I think he's just a good receiver, and I want to see the Waddle dance in the end zone. DJ Moore, wide receiver 14. Truck's got him at 13. We're all high on the Bears in Caleb, so they do add Keenan and Rome. I guess this is the conversation with talking about the Bears wide receiver room with rankings. I have DJ Moore, wide receiver 14.
Mm-hmm.
I have, where's Rome?
He's 34.
Rome, wide receiver 34. And then Keenan. I'm sure I have him below. So Keenan as 44.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now Truck has DJ Moore 13, Keenan Allen 30. I want to write all this down just because that's what my brain is doing right now. So 13, 30, and then he has Rome as the wide receiver 3, I imagine, at 37. So you have Rome as your wide receiver 3 in this
Yes.
offense. Okay. And Shane O'Mac, where do you have Keenan? You have him as 31, and then you have Rome as 43. So you have that same order as well.
I do.
Okay, I do not. I have Rome as wide receiver 2. I'd like to maybe even bump him up from this if I can. I'll have to try to find a way to. I currently can't. I could probably put him above Cooper Kupp. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to boost him above Rome or above this, above basically where they have Keenan or higher, because I do have Caleb as 4,700 yards and 45 touchdowns. So I got to stat that out and see where he ends up. I genuinely think Rome is going to end up wide receiver 2 in this offense. We talked about the ability of Nabers. We talked about the ability of Harrison. I think Rome is pretty close to that level, but what he has on, honestly, both of those guys is maturity and like the it factor. Well, they all have the it factor, but like the maturity, I think, is in the work ethic. Like Rome understands the situation he's in. He's going to put in every single ounce of work. You've heard me talk about Blake Corum. Like that's why Blake Corum is successful. And as a little guy, that's how he's, in the position he's in, national champion, 3rd round draft pick. Rome has those types of intangibles. He's mature for his age. He's with the best quarterback, a Hall of Fame quarterback, a guy who's going to bring 5 Super Bowls to Chicago, and they're going to do it together. And like he's just going to start off with a very strong career. I'm so confident in him doing that. So I think it's DJ Moore in his prime, wide receiver 1, going to have an insane year. I think it's Rome Odunze, all the talent in the world. He's going to learn. I almost think Keenan Allen's going to have more of a mentorship role than like pure on-field production. I think he's just going to teach Rome, like, this is how to be a professional. This is how I play wide receiver. And he could still have an outstanding year. I genuinely think they could have 3 wide receivers with 1,000 yards. I'm not ready to put Rome behind him because of like those two, how important it is to establish that chemistry from year 1. And I think they're gonna have a ton of success, win the division, be in the NFC Championship. So if they reach those heights, it's gonna be because Caleb has a massive year and so does Rome.
Yeah, and I love all 3 of these guys. Don't get me wrong. Bear down, okay? I love all 3 of them. I want to put all 3 of them at 1, 2, and 3 in my rankings, but I can't. Here's my thing is I'm going to be watching training camp because I feel like I could be switching Rome and Keenan based on word from training camp. Early on, it was said that maybe Keenan Allen was going to be in the slot, and in 2 wide receiver sets, it was going to be DJ and Rome. If that's the case and that's how it progresses through camp, then I will be switching Rome and Keenan. But right now, looking at it, Keenan is a Hall of Fame wide receiver. He is too good on the field at separation, route running. He's an elite athlete, and I think it's someone that when he's on the field, it's hard not to target him because he's going to be open all the time. And then DJ Moore, of course, having the year that he had last year, I think he can build on that with having Caleb, the best quarterback he's ever played with. So to me, it all depends on what happens through camp. I think Keenan's too good to ignore. If he's going to be on the field more than Rome, then that's my ranks will stay the way they are. But if I get any word about Rome being the outside guy with DJ, then I'm going to have to adjust.
I'm not ready to put Keenan Allen in the Hall of Fame. Are you, Shane?
I don't think Hall of Fame. No.
I don't think he's a Hall of Famer either.
But
I would do a pod bet. Truck. Are you
that Keenan Allen gets in? I think he does. I think he deserves it. I think he deserves a Hall of Fame.
He's not as good as Mike Evans.
Not even close.
And Mike Evans is going in, but
Well, yeah, Mike Evans is going to be
Mike Evans is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think Keenan is a Hall of Famer. I just wanted to start there. Yeah, he's good. I think he's going to be invaluable in teaching. What I think is going to happen is the Bears are going to have a ton of success this year. He's going to take a mentorship role with Rome. He's probably going to have a decent season. Not great, but he's going to take that third seat in that receiver room. And then he's going to realize the situation that he's in and how special of a quarterback and a wide receiver room that he's in. And he's going to take a team-friendly deal to stay with the Bears and win a Super Bowl and go out that way. And he could probably play a couple years with his skill set. He's not this once he loses a step, he's going to be gone type of receiver. He could play for a few years and just get in space and catch balls. But I just think that starts this year. That doesn't, in order for him to be a part of this team, it's not the Keenan Allen of the past. It's developing players around him and being smart and just being a reliable pass catcher in space. So I just think that starts now, as opposed to if he has a big year, he's just going to go get paid somewhere, or demand a bigger role in the offense that just doesn't exist for him. So we're going to be like, sorry, you're half juiced, but we don't need you to be that guy. So I just think that starts this year. I think that's where the chips fall in camp, like you're talking about. That's why my rankings already reflect it. But I have to bump up Rome because I'm as high as anyone else, probably higher than Caleb Williams.
And I have no problem with you doing that. None whatsoever.
I think that was just worth talking about because
absolutely.
It's going to mirror also, I think, when we get into training camps and preseason, we're going to be having the same conversation about the Houston wide receiver room where
great transition.
Let's talk about that next.
Yeah, where you're going to be for me personally, I feel like I'm going to be shifting those Houston wide receivers kind of all the way leading up through almost week 1.
Yeah. So we have, do we all have Stephon Diggs over Nico Collins?
I have Diggs at 16, Nico at 17, Tank at 22. Shane O'Mac has Diggs at 18, Collins at 19, or no, this is Truck. Truck has Diggs at 19 or at 18, Nico at 19, and Dell at 33, and then Shane O'Mac has Diggs. Where's Diggs?
Diggs first.
Diggs at 19. Love to see that, Shane. Oh wait, no, you're the lowest on him. Never mind. Fuck you. 24 for Nico and 37 for Tank. To be honest, I'm trusting Shane O'Mac more than I'm trusting myself on this Texans ranking because I will fully admit that this is a best ball ranking for me in terms of having Dell. I think he's going to have massive games. He's probably pushed down a little bit in redraft for me. Probably. I don't know. My Texans, I'll fully just admit my Texans rankings are off right now with where they're sitting. So
just real quick, I'll preface, you mentioned where we have them ranked. I just want to mention where they're being drafted in the consensus right now. Nico Collins is being drafted as wide receiver 13. He is consensus wide receiver 18. Stephon Diggs is being drafted as 23 and in consensus is wide receiver 23. And Dell is all the way down at being drafted as wide receiver 25 and consensus 32. So people outside of us and outside of our little circle here, they all believe Nico Collins is going to be the guy. He's being drafted 10 to 12 spots ahead of Stephon Diggs. And to me, if you're just looking at the receivers, I understand Diggs is a diva. I understand he has problems on and off the field, but he's going into Houston as his first year. He's looking to prove a point here. He's looking to win a championship with them. And I think this is when you see the best Stephon Diggs, right when he enters a situation. You see a bad Stephon Diggs at the end of the situation. So looking at the two receivers between Nico and Diggs, Diggs is the better receiver. Diggs is going to command more targets, in my opinion. Nico Collins is a very talented receiver. I love Nico Collins. Last year, he was almost one of my guys. I'm not sure if he was or not, but I just looking at the two receivers, I don't know how you could put Nico over Diggs.
Yeah, I started off the year with Nico higher, and then I made that switch for Diggs, kind of with the same reason. Like they brought him into the reason for a reason. He's going to get peppered. I think he is plays well in the first year, and I don't think we see that dip in the second half of the season that we've seen from him in the last 2 years.
Honestly, there's Cole's conspiracy here. I think Josh Allen was icing him out. I think the whole locker room didn't like the way that he was headed, and halfway through the year, he just stopped targeting him. He stopped throwing him the ball to isolate him, and then eventually he left the situation. That's my little Cole's conspiracy with how things ended.
I don't think that's a conspiracy. I think that came out from the Bills insider.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't see that. That's the way I felt about it, but I don't think I saw that.
No, that literally came out today or yesterday.
Yeah, and it's just hard for me to bring up Tank Dell higher because of not only Collins and Diggs, but you've also got Dalton Schultz, and then also you've got Joe Mixon, who I think catches 50-plus balls each of the last 2 years, and he could get more targets and more receptions out of the backfield, which takes
definitely
away.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, sorry, I'm almost done here with my little shitty analysis. I think that Shane and I, or Truck and I, are for sure off on our rankings with Texans and / Bears. Shane's probably a little bit more on par there. Shane's got Stroud as okay. So I'll fully admit that my brain is broken from best ball and it's staying that way. Shane's definitely more of our draft. He doesn't participate in best ball, so he's probably the most trusted in redraft rankings. I'm ready to fully admit that, but for him, he's got CJ Stroud as his quarterback 3, and then he's got Caleb as 11. So in theory, Diggs, Nico, and Dell should all be higher than his Bears players. He has Diggs at 19, Nico at 24, and Dell at 37. Comparable, but still has that wide receiver room higher than the Bears, with DJ Moore at 14, with Keenan at 31, and then Rome at 43. So that reflects that. I didn't do or maybe I did the analysis, but yeah, so I still have Diggs 18, Nico 19, and Tank Dell I had him at 22, I believe.
Yeah.
No, that was Truck's numbers. So Truck had, my analysis was shitty. Truck has DJ Moore at 13, Keenan at 30, and Rome at 37, and then he has Diggs and Nico at 18, 19 with Dell at 33. So he has the Texans receiver room higher than he has the Bears receiver room, with Caleb and Stroud basically on par, sitting there at the same way. So you probably need to even that out a little bit more, whereas mine is just full rogue. Like I have Diggs 16, Nico 17, and then Dell at 22. And then you guys saw where I had DJ Moore 14, and then Rome all the way down at 34. Mm-hmm. And then Keenan even further down. Yet I have Caleb at 5 and Stroud at 7. So I need to go back when I start looking at redraft and have those fall in line a little bit more. There's no way I should have my Bears receiver room be egregiously lower than the Texans. Again,
and be higher on Caleb. Yeah.
That's best ball just breaking my brain, because Tank Dell is someone that I love at his ADP in best ball, given that I think he's going to be a massive part. To me, Tank Dell is the bigger part. He's the guaranteed part of the Texans offense. They're going to prioritize getting the ball. He's the Jaden Reed of that offense. They're going to get him the ball as many times as they can, whereas Nico and Diggs, their skill set is a little bit more aligned. I think Diggs has a huge year. I think Nico's not going to go away. He's just being drafted in the second round, beginning of the second round, whereas Diggs is like further in the third. I'm drafting Diggs. I'm not drafting Nico. So, how am I going to put that into rankings? I haven't really. Apparently, I fucked that up when creating my rankings. They don't reflect that. These are best ball rankings, and they're going to stay that way because, quite frankly, I care way more. I'm going to be way more invested in best ball, but I do need to reevaluate that when we're doing true redraft rankings.
Yeah, and I think it's great that you preface that. Best ball is still fantasy football, so I think it's totally acceptable for you to have best ball based rankings and just preface that. So I do like that you say that. And I agree with you. I think Tank Dell is a great best ball pick. But I said this before, it wouldn't surprise me if Tank Dell is has the most targets on the team. I'm not sure. I guess it wouldn't surprise me if Rome had the highest targets on the team either. So they're very similar situations with the 3 wide receivers, and I'm excited to see what
stat
happens.
those. Make sure you have those accurate because that needs to be. You're gonna need to take a stance on one of those teams. They're important in fantasy this year. I think we all agree that Stroud had an awesome year last year. He's going to have another great year. And Caleb, if you have him above QB, I know ADP is QB 12 in best ball. If you have him above that, then you need to get the right. You need to plant the right flags in that wide receiver room because you should be targeting Caleb at his ADP. Caleb at QB 12 is an auto pick for me at his ADP. I have him as my QB. What did I say? 5 or 6? 5. So he's an auto pick at ADP. Dalton Kincaid's an auto pick at ADP. Like you need to figure out who those guys are for your team. But Caleb being that makes more in Rome are going to be the guys on all of my redraft teams because I think those ships are going to all rise together and outperform their ADPs significantly.
All right.
And that's how that is.
That's how that is. Can we talk? I want to talk about somebody.
Let's go. Let it rip.
Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin.
McLaurin.
Scary Terry is somebody who's, I'll just say it right now. He's going to be a my guy. Okay. He is definitely going to be a my guy. I cannot wait to see what he's able to do with Jaden Daniels. We saw what the Commanders did. They brought in Dan Quinn from Shane's Cowboys and Cliff Kingsbury. If you guys, I'm sure you guys already know, but Cliff has been known to develop Caleb, worked with Patrick Mahomes. He brought the Cardinals to a double-digit win in a playoff berth. 3 of his 4 offenses finished top 3 in pace and offensive play. Cliff Kingsbury knows how to air it out. Terry McLaurin has been a reliable deep threat for years now. Last year, 23 catches over 20-plus yards. He ranked 8th in deep targets, 13th in air yards. There's not much not to like about him. And, Jaden Daniels is known for throwing the deep ball. That's just what he does. So, to me, this is just a match made in heaven. There was only 4 receivers. I want to quiz you guys on this. Only 4 receivers to have 75 yards and 75 receptions and 1,000 yards in the last 4 years. McLaurin is one of them. Diggs is the other. I'm not even going to quiz you. It's Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill. Those are the only 4 receivers in the last 4 years to go 75 for 1,000 yards. He did that with 11 quarterbacks. I'm going to list off 11 quarterbacks that Terry McLaurin has played with. He has played with Case Keenum, Dwayne Haskins, RIP, Colt McCoy, Alex Smith, Kyle Allen, Taylor Heineke, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Garrett Gilbert, Carson Wentz, Sam Howell, and Jacoby Brissett. And he was able to do 75 and 1,000 every one of the he's the type of guy that doesn't let the bad quarterback play hinder his production. And I think with Jaden Daniels, the sky's the limit. I'm going to be drafting him in every league. He's my guy, and I can't wait for Terry McLaurin.
McLaurin. So yeah, Truck. I have him at 26. I'm high on him as well. Shane O'Mac's got him at 30. Talk about it a little bit, Shane.
Yeah, I think probably if I was going to do some adjusting on the fly, I would at least put him ahead of Kirk and maybe Cup even. So he'll probably come up a couple of spots. He's got such a safe floor. I mean, easily. I guess the only thing you have to worry about is just all the touchdowns that will be stolen because of Ben Sinnott there.
I'll be surprised if he sees the field much.
No, I think
I'm excited for that our tight end episode. By the way,
I think he's probably one of the safest number 2 wide receivers you'll draft.
Oh yeah, I think he's very underrated, and I'd be more than happy to have him as my wide receiver too. I think he's going to have his best statistical season so far in his career. I think he's going to, the way that we said it, DJ Moore last year would have the best year he's ever had. I think that's my Terry McLaurin this year.
I like it. Yeah, I like that. I think where you have the Cardinals, kind of this is their season to rise. I have the Commanders. I'll probably be Eagles, Redskins, Cowboys, Giants in that order. Honestly, like I could see the Cowboys being in last place. Sorry, Shane. I don't know. We'll see what happens. If Jaden Daniels is good, then that team's going to be awesome. I don't know if I'm ready to put them at their ceiling, which would be second in the division. Now that I say it, like I think Giants are going to be, a 7-win team. I think they could probably this Redskins could probably be 500 and be a good team. So where do the Cowboys fit in there? Probably like maybe 10 wins. I don't know. It's going to be a lot closer. Those three are going to be a lot closer than I think. I don't think it's going to be Eagles, Cowboys, and the rest of the division this year. I think there's a little bit of a step up from the Skins in the Giants. So if Jaden Daniels is a good quarterback, then all of the weapons in that offense are going to follow. McLaurin, Dotson, talk about him in a little bit, and then B-Rob, Eckler, like that offense. There's a ton of value in that offense right now. If you believe in them even a little bit, if you believe in Jaden Daniels even a little bit, then there's value in this offense, and go get those guys because they're being drafted pretty low.
How about let's talk about one of Shane's favorite guys, Amari Cooper.
Coop?
I mean, it's just a broken record for me. I mean, it's
we don't need to talk about it.
I mean,
It's the same.
I'm not a believer in Deshaun Watson, so
yeah, you don't need to talk about Amari Cooper, but I would like to because I'm high. I know Mike and I have been drafting him basically all the time in best ball drafts, and Amari Cooper has been known to be very hot and cold. I get that, but he played with 4 different quarterbacks last year, and then we saw Stefanski towards the end of the season with Flacco, really air it out and really open up this offense. He even won people championships in fantasy. He had in the championships games, he had 11 catches, 265 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Obviously, that's with Flacco, but what I want to focus on is Stefanski's play scheme towards the end of that year, and I think that's kind of where he's going to lead into this season. Granted, this all depends on Deshaun Watson's availability. We had shoulder surgery, and he couldn't stay on the field last year. But I still think Watson, his talent, he's capable of still airing it out like Stefanski wants to. They bring in Ken Dorsey from Buffalo in 2022. The Bills had the 8th most passing attempts. Like Ken Dorsey knows how to air it out too. So I'm excited. I think Chubb coming back, still recovering from this injury, along with the success they had late at the end of the season, gears me up to say that Stefanski is going to air it out early on in this offense, and Amari Cooper is going to be the beneficiary to that. They have one of the best offensive lines to give Watson enough time to throw it, and I think Amari is going to outperform his ADP this year.
Yeah, he's in the prime of his career athletically as well. I think he balls out. Shane, you have Pickens at 21. Talk about him.
Yeah, so I have talked a lot about Pickens this offseason. Like, he's been one of my main sleepers to target. I just like the fact that, the 4 games when he played last year without Deontay Johnson, he was almost at a 30% target share. He averaged, I think, 17 PPR points in those 4 games. And that was I think the stat was an 80% catchable pass rate that he was getting from the quarterback play last year. And so whatever you think of Russell Wilson, he's a better quarterback for Pickens fantasy wise than Pickett was last year. So I think this is one of those guys. Like, I think he has such a high potential ceiling for me that I'm going to be targeting him in a lot of drafts.
What about so do you think Russell's going to be the quarterback there?
100%.
Do you think he's going to be the quarterback all year?
I think it'll be at least half of the year, but I would say like 10 games at least.
10 games. Okay. I think he's the quarterback there as well. Probably all year. I think he's going to be the quarterback all year. Truck, did you ever land anywhere on that? I know you thought Fields was going to be the quarterback, but where did you land?
It's Russell. I don't think Fields is going to come in. It's going to be Russell early. And even so, like, it's just going to, the way I was looking at their schedule, we've talked about it before, their back half of the season is a gauntlet. And if that's when Justin Fields comes in to play quarterback, it's going to ruin his entire career and he's never going to start another game. So I think Russell finishes out the season. I think the Steelers are going to be good. And not good. I think they're going to be decent like they usually are. I do think they're going to be a game shy of 500. I think they're going to finish last in the division. And it's definitely not going to be. They weren't 5-1 last year in the division. I don't see that happening again. With Burrow now healthy, with the Ravens getting Mark Andrews. I'm sorry, they get Mark Andrews back from injury, and they bring in Derrick Henry. It's gearing up to me that the Steelers are going to finish last in the division, and Russell Wilson will probably be the quarterback during the whole season. But Pickens his price isn't that expensive. Like, he's being drafted as wide receiver 28. He's consensus wide receiver 31. Like, he has just as good of an opportunity to finish as a wide receiver 2 or higher than most of those guys in that range. So I do think Pickens is a good draft pick, and I wouldn't mind taking him.
Yeah. So do you still think that Justin Fields is going to be a Hall of Famer?
No. When did I say Justin Fields is a Hall of Famer?
So with Russell Wilson at quarterback last year, Cortland Sutton had 10 touchdowns. If Pickens even sniffs 10 touchdowns, double-digit touchdowns, he's going to be a top 15 wide receiver. I think his ceiling is as high as Shane's saying. I would be drafting him because I do think it is Russell. If it was Fields, I would probably be pretty low on him. Let's put it this way. Once we're confirmed that it's Russell, which I do think it was, I could see him going up maybe above Dell. I need to figure out what's going on with Ayuk. I could probably knock Nico down a little bit, but I would definitely, let's put it this way. I'll for sure have Pickens ahead of Devonta Smith. So, what does that look like? Probably DK getting bumped up, Cooper getting bumped up, and then him somewhere being right outside my fringe top 20. Because I do think I think those touchdown numbers do improve. So he's just so talented. Like, we talked about catch radius earlier with Drake London and with Garrett Wilson. He's probably in that same tier of just pure catch radius. He's, him, Mike Evans, his name's sitting right there. They have that same type of catch radius. Michael Pittman is another guy. But anyways, I agree with Shane. I'm very high on Pickens this year. I'm excited to see what that offense looks like. I haven't, as Truck said, statted out the division yet. I can't imagine having them above Ravens, Bengals, maybe Browns, but I do like the changes they made this offseason. They always win games. It's going to be tough to see. Unfortunately, it's a hot take of saying that this is going to be their first year below 500, but I think I kind of agree with Truck. Even though I like what they've done in the offseason, I think they have a championship-ready defense. It's just that division.
Did you hear
so fucking good? It's crazy.
Did you hear the newest rumors around Arthur Smith coming out saying that Cordell Patterson is going to have a bigger role than people imagine? So I guess people that own in Dynasty Jalen Warren and Najee are freaking out because of the nightmares they had last year.
Do you want to know how fucked up my brain is, Truck?
What?
When you said, did you hear what Arthur Smith came out and said or whatever? I genuinely thought you were about to say that he was in he was in OnlyFans videos with Sketch.
Oh my god. All right. Well, yeah, no, that's not what I was gonna say.
In my reality, that's what I wanted you to say.
Okay, because that's what you think of Arthur Smith.
Kinda.
All right. I thought that was a funny thing that came out, and I had a chuckle when I saw it. So,
Well, I thought that was a funny insight into my brain. So we're all on the same page here. Let's move on. Let's talk about another wide receiver room that if you figure it out, if you pick it right, you're gonna be in a very good spot in fantasy football. And I'll let Shane start with Keon Coleman. We're gonna talk about the Bills. If you know where the production is going to come from in this Bills wide receiver room, you're going to be in a very good spot in your league. So Keon, Curtis Samuel, Lil Shaker, then you have Kincaid, of course. But if you can stat out this wide receiver room correctly, you're going to have a ton of value. Josh Allen is going to put up, the best fantasy season, overall number one, like he always does. And he's going to show to the NFL that regardless who is there, like he's basically going to show Stephon Diggs, like, get your bullshit out of here. I just made 3 Stephon Diggs.
It reminds me of the Patrick Mahomes when he lost Tyreek, and everyone's like, "Oh, he lost Tyreek. He's going to take a step down." And he goes, "No, fuck that. Check this out." Yeah. So that's what reminds me of.
Yeah, so I go on. I want to hear you talk about Keon, Shane. I know Truck is a Lil Shaker guy. I am honestly a Samuel guy as well, but I like all 3 of them. I just think it's going to be spread out, but I want to hear you talk about Keon.
Yeah, I mean, so you're looking at what, like 50% of the team's targets are up in the air with Diggs and Gabe Davis gone. Like, so it's like I call it like the poo-poo platter of wide receivers of Curtis Samuel, Shakir, MVS, Chase Claypool, Mac Hollins. Like none of those guys to me have the physical traits that Coleman has that could be play outside, win contested catches. And then hopefully they move him around a little bit so he gets some of those intermediate routes too to help for PPR leagues. I just think he is so on such a different level than what the rest of the wide receiver room is that Josh Allen will have to target him heavily.
You're absolutely right. And I have Keon the highest, and I feel like I need to move him up. And Mike, when you were describing, I know I want to move him up. I'm high on him in general, but I want to move him up some. When you were talking about the whole thing with Caleb Williams and CJ Stroud and where we have those receivers, we are so high on Josh Allen, and we have his number 1 receiver down at where do we have Keon? In the 40s. His number 1 receiver, his highest ranked receiver in the 40s. Because then you got Shaker down at or you got Curtis and Shaker back to back. I thought I saw right there.
Yeah, so I
pretty
have
close,
Keon
50,
41. I have Samuel 50. I have Shaker at 52. Truck has 43 for Keon, 51 for Shaker, and Curtis at 52. Shane O'Mac has 32 for Keon. He's got 50 for Shaker, and then 58 for Samuel. I also have Dalton Kincaid as my tight end 1. I have him at like 100 receptions, 1,000 yards, and 10 touchdowns, which is insane, obviously, for a tight end. But so I think I am going to bump Keon up. Keon was let's not forget, he was my wide receiver 3, or I basically had him above Rome, which I take back now, heading into the draft. And he only got a better situation in the draft. So for me, he's just undoubtedly wide receiver 4 out of these rookies. Like a crazy hot take of mine would be that he has a better season than Marvin Harrison Jr. I genuinely think that if he's wide receiver 1 and just takes off in that offense, that is a realistic scenario that can happen. Do I think it happens? I don't know. I mean, that's so hard for a wide receiver to do his rookie season but a quarterback as special as Allen, like, can make that happen. Like, it's not
You're
hard
absolutely
to
right.
say that. So Keon Coleman, let's not forget, he was the best wide receiver in a Michigan State room that involved Jaden Reed. Keon Coleman was outstanding last year at Florida State. The best thing that could have happened for me as a Keon Coleman lover is the analytics department and the NFL Combine guys coming out and saying that Keon Coleman just didn't perform well as a RAS score, whatever they came out and said. He's a fucking football player and he just landed on the best fantasy spot, period. I need to put him way up. As high as I am on him as a person, as a football player, and the landing spot with the amount of production that is missing, he's going to be my guy now that I talk about it. Like, put Keon and put Kincaid. It's just the perfect storm of, like, we have an industry consensus that's low on him, when if you're a believer in him, you should be standing outside waiting to draft him in every single fucking draft. And that's where I'll be, I think, this year. His value, his ADP in these best ball drafts has come back to life a little bit. So now I'll
tell you right now,
drafted
Keon
at like
Coleman,
79.
Wide receiver 47.
47, and he's I think it's overall 79 is where his ADP is. So 40 wide receiver 47. I'm sure I'll have him in my final ranking sitting outside the top 25, probably around, towards the end. Again, gonna have to look at how much production that Kincaid gets, and then what's left for Samuel and Lil Shaker, because I do think he spreads it out more than he has or ever has. I love Curtis Samuel. I think he's going to play that Beasley role. I think he's going to be a Cole Beasley 2.0. He's going to have some games where he catches, 10 balls. He's going to have, I bet you he catches at least 6 in most games. So Samuel is that dynamic type Beasley role player that he's going to absorb a lot of that production as well. And then Shaker might be that, like, big play bomb type player in that offense. That's kind of where I'm at. Keon, if I'm statting out the production, I'm backing into it. I'm saying this is a Josh Allen season. This is what it's always been. It's going to be the same. And then I'm saying wide receiver 1.5, pass catcher 1.5 is Keon, pass catcher 1.5 is Kincaid, and then maybe tilting the scale a little bit towards Keon in terms of production, just because of wide receiver ahead of tight end as just a receiver, or as a positional group. And then I'm going Samuel, high volume catches, Shaker, high volume home run type plays. And that's how I'll be statting out that wide receiver room. So getting that to reflect in my rankings is going to be important as we head into draft season.
Yeah, and the way you describe Curtis is the way I feel about Lil Shaker, Khalil Shakir. I think he's going to fit into that Cole Beasley quote unquote role. Early reports is he looks like he's going to be the slot option. We've seen great production from him in the past with Allen. He's the only one out of these three that have any connection with him. And we saw his production change in the second half of the season last year. He had 3 games finishing in the top 24. He scored a touchdown in both playoff games that they played. He had 9 targets versus the Chiefs in the divisional game. So when the game is on the line, Josh Allen went to Khalil Shakir. And the wide receiver room's up for grabs. So I do think Keon Coleman is the best receiver in the room. I do think he ends up finishing as the best receiver. But to me, it would go Keon, Shaker, and then Curtis. But I do like Curtis Samuel, and I think he's a great receiver. It's just something I'm willing to be wrong on with Curtis.
See, like, why I don't agree with you is because he never had more than 6 catches. Like, late in the season, he got like 4 targets, 5. So he never played that role. and I'm looking to see like he just didn't play that like volume reception role, which there he goes in the divisional game against the Chiefs. He had nine targets for 7 catches. So that was a game which he would have played that role, but that to me is the only time he did that. So I don't know. I think the season kind of fell apart, and like you mentioned, you thought that he was icing Diggs out. Bill's insider came and said that's exactly what happened. So that could be a reason why he went to Lil Shaker a lot more. I just think it's going to be a completely different offense. So like you can't really point to like last season in my mind. But I think that we see Shaker more so when he's in the slot. He like runs vertically downfield, whereas Beasley would run those like little like kitch out routes and get like, you know, the first down type plays. So whoever is, it probably is going to end up being both of them to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But I just see in terms of over the season, you're going to see the higher volume of targets and catches be Samuel, whereas Shaker will have more yards. And that's just how I see it. And then more touchdowns, I think, will go to Samuel. So
Yeah.
we'll see. That's an important one to stat out. So you gotta find the right piece of that offense. There's going to be a ton of value because there's a ton of production coming from Josh Allen offense.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love it. I want to hear Shane O'Mac talk about Brian Thomas Jr. While I bust out the lotion and Tyga Bait.
So for me,
Also,
like,
you guys have him as Junior. Right now I have him as Thomas because I have a feeling he asked to drop the Junior out of his name.
oh
because
really?
I don't know. It just went missing on
Underdog.
On
right?
Underdog. I wonder if it's the same in Sleeper. But go ahead and talk about him.
Okay.
I have a feeling you're going to say negative things. Which
No,
I'm
like I
excited.
feel like I've got it had pretty ranked high. Like there was, I think,
Sleeper.
200 targets that is out there and available with the departure of Ridley and Zay Jones. I'm not a big believer in Gabe Davis. I mean, I think he is very, as the kid would say, mid. So, I mean, Thomas is, I think, one of the better rookie receivers that isn't talked about in the draft. I mean, his catch rate last year was better than Marvin Harrison. It was better than Rome, and it was better than Malik Nabers.
I think it's what 17 touchdowns.
Yeah, and so he had this huge, like almost, I think that was almost 80% catch rate, and he had like the second highest ADOT among all those receivers. So I think he is probably one of the most slept on receivers that was drafted this year.
Yeah, I'm trying to Google when he started playing football because I'm pretty sure it was like it was not very long ago. He's a pure raw talent. Go ahead and talk, Truck, because I want to Google this.
Yeah, there's just a lot of vacated targets with Calvin Ridley leaving this offense. Me and Coles both believe that Trevor Lawrence is going to take a step up this year. I do, Christian Kirk is going to be there, and he's going to be commanding a lot of targets in a focal point of this offense. But Brian Thomas, to me, has that elite upside for a rookie wide receiver in an offense that should be showing improvements this year. And Brian Thomas, he's like that Keon Coleman. You know what I mean? He's being drafted in that same pocket. He's being drafted as wide receiver 43. I think he's consensus 49. And that's someone in that range that has so much upside that I'm going to be targeting him in basically every draft. It's, a lot of our underdog drafts, it's either Brian Thomas or Keon Coleman in that range. It's no one else. And I think that just speaks on to why we have him up at 35. He could finish in the top 24, in my opinion. So you could easily see a breakout from Brian Thomas. He's that good.
I can't find the exact. I know there's a story about him. I think it may be just that he was a better high school basketball player than football player. He was a 5-star basketball, 4-star football. Was still the number 13 ranked wideout coming out of high school and 86 overall. So he was a highly touted talent out of high school. I think he's still a very raw talent type player. Like, he was outstanding at LSU. You see it, obviously it's just camp and it's OTAs and there's not live games going on, but just his physical ability and him taking those deep shots. I think you're going to see an increase in Trevor Lawrence this year, getting the ball in the end zone, turning the ball over less. And I think a huge part of that's going to be Brian Thomas. He has the physical ability and that shell of a receiver that is going to make big plays and be like the true alpha dog wide receiver one. I think Christian Kirk is a better receiver as a wide receiver too. And I think the Jaguars take a huge step forward this year in that offense. And Trevor Lawrence kind of, shows everyone that last year was a little bit about injury, and he needs to make a big statement. And I think he does, because I think he is a big time quarterback in this league. So I could see myself having the Jaguars win that division, and Brian Thomas will be a huge part of why.
Yeah.
I think we are like 132 and an hour and a half into the show. I think we've got to because I would like your guys' opinion, because this is what I'm struggling with. We got to talk about the Chiefs wide receiver room also. I think this is one of the bigger question marks also.
Yeah, and it's not just there's a lot to talk about still. I mean, we're an hour and a half into this episode, and I feel like we've covered a good portion of it. But as I'm looking at these rankings, there's a lot that I want to talk about. And you're right, Chiefs are on the top of the list. I have Hollywood Brown as my highest. You've heard me and Shane kind of get into it early on. Right when I found out that Hollywood Brown was going to the Chiefs, I said he was going to be the number one receiver. And we made a pod bet. Now, Rashee Rice dealt with some off the field stuff with some legal issues and has a potential suspension impending. And we'll see how that shakes out. But let's just assume that he's suspended 3 or 4 games, right?
Okay, yeah, call it 4 games.
Fair assumption, just as hypothetically speaking. I think that opens the door for Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy. Now, obviously, in my rankings, you'll be able to notice that I'm kind of down on Xavier Worthy. I don't think he's going to have a big role in this offense when Rashee Rice comes back. I think it's going to be Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, and Kelsey, and then you're going to see those deep targets to Worthy, some maybe some explosive games, but nothing consistent in my opinion. I love what Hollywood Brown brings to this offense. He has an elite speed and athleticism, explosiveness. We've seen it in spurts. He's never really been in a full a system where they utilize his skill set. We saw it a little bit on the Cardinals. Games of 10 plus targets, 12 plus targets. He was a focal point for Kyler, but there was some injury deals with Kyler, and he wasn't on the field as much as you'd like to see him. So I think Hollywood comes in with the best quarterback, obviously, in Patrick Mahomes, the opportunity to build rapport with him early on. And I think that once Patty Mahomes realizes how secure of a target that Hollywood is, I think that just gears up for a phenomenal season. And he's one of the guys I'm targeting. I'm going to say it now. He's my guy, along with McLaurin. I want as much Hollywood Brown as I can possibly get.
McLaurin.
Him and Hollywood and McLaurin.
So I like Hollywood. I love all of those receivers. I think plant your flag on one and run with it. I hear every argument, and I think they're all going to be great. So the thing that worries me about redraft is like that production is going to be spread out thin, and the big games are going to be kind of all over the place between those three. I don't know. I think they're clearly going with the air raid offense. They want Mahomes to throw the ball more this year. They're going to be a ton of production to go around. It's just they have 5. They have Hollywood, Rashee, Worthy, and then Kelsey. Like those are some pretty big eaters. I don't know. I think I like Hollywood. I need to see what's going to happen with Rashee. I hate giving away all of my secrets on the pod, but I think like probably the best in that BML league again. Drafting Rashee Rice is a slam dunk no brainer. I think he's going to be.
You are 100% accurate. I didn't think about it before, but that is someone we're going to be targeting around 5, 6, 7. We'll see where it stats out, but yeah, I mean, I'm 100% in on that.
He's someone that like is going to be thought. He's getting drafted behind Hollywood. I think when he comes back, he's going to be the wide receiver 1 of that offense. I mean, Shane, you remember last year like how high I had him early on. You were on that board as well. I think in Dynasty we had him maybe a top 10 Dynasty receiver.
He was
like that's an insane testament to who he is. And I don't know that Hollywood's going to be a Chief for a very long time, right? Like he should be. It would be smart of him to be, but is Hollywood one of those guys that balls out this year and then goes and just chases the bag? Yeah, I could see that 1,000%. So we'll see.
I think once he gets a taste of those championships, I think they get a 3-peat this year. Hollywood wins it with them, realizes what it feels like to win a championship, and then takes a team-friendly deal to stay on the team. That's the way I see it.
You're just saying that, like, in theory, that could be great, but, like, what does that actually look like in dollar amount? Like, how much money do they have to pay him? He's not going to just take a veteran's minimum coming off of 1,200 yards
of course
and 10
not.
touchdowns.
Of course not. It would have to work out the money, of course. And I'm just saying that's what I would like to see happen, and I think it's a possibility.
But they're going to have to pay Rashee Rice at the same time, and then a year later they're going to have to pay Xavier Worthy. So, like, like it's not like
they still got. Don't they got 2 years? Rashee was a rookie last year, so they get paid on after year 4.
Yeah, but then what is he going to do? Is he going to take another 1 year, $10 million deal and gamble on getting $50 million, which is, he'd probably end up getting what? I don't know from a number standpoint, but a 3-year deal, $60 million somewhere, that's just like some team that's desperate for a wide receiver 1. There's going to be a bag available, and he's going to have to bet on, like, he's just not going to get paid. They're not going to pay him. Like, he's going to be the odd man out. They're going to pay Rashee. They're going to pay Worthy, who's a younger, faster version of him. So, like, for me, like, he's going to ball out and go get paid somewhere else. I just don't know that. We haven't looked at what the team-friendly deal. It sounds great in theory, happily ever after, but, like, realistically, those guys are on, that GM sitting there looking at the board when they're getting paid, and there's only so much money to go around. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. All right. Another group I want to talk about is the Packers wide receivers. I think this is a great topic as well. Obviously, Jaden Reed is the consensus wide receiver 1. I think we all have him as the wide receiver 1. But someone I want to talk about that Coles and I have been drafting a lot is Christian Watson. Obviously dealing with the hamstring issue, not being able to stay on the field as much as you'd like to see. But I'm confident that if he stays on the field, he is going to be that elite wide receiver that the Packers are going to utilize. And I'm excited to see what happens this year if he can stay healthy. I don't know, Coles, I know you share the same sentiment that you think Christian Watson's going to have a really good year and outperform his ADP.
Yeah, just like again, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt of staying on the field, so he's got to do that in order. He's got all the physical abilities to be the wide receiver 1 of that offense. I think they're going to spread it out, but he should be the alpha dog in that wide receiver room in terms of like pure receiver. Obviously, Reed is the Tank Dell, like I mentioned, in that offense. So I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that he's going to stay healthy, and if he does, he's going to have a great year. I'm all over him in best ball and redraft. I don't know. I haven't even thought about it yet this year. So, you know what I think we're going to need to do? I just want to highlight Shane O'Mac's spelling mistake.
Hey, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one.
Mims. But
Mimsy.
yeah, I think Mimsy. I think we're going to have to do a another episode for wide receivers and like basically say these it's important. Like we've talked about now, the Bears, the Bills, the Texans, the Packers. Like there's wide receiver rooms that there's a lot of mouths to feed,
Chiefs.
and there's value on the board if you get those receiver rooms correct.
Yep.
So we're gonna need to do a follow up. I think this episode's going great, but we can be on here for 3 hours if we want to talk through all these wide receiver rooms. So we're gonna have to just go through. I think we kind of slow down on that. We each hit a couple of guys left, and then we do a follow up episode that after we stat out each of these receiver rooms, we say, here's what they look like. Here's where the value is. Whether you listen to us or not, you need to go ahead and do this for these wide receiver rooms, because if you get them right, you're going to have a ton of value.
It'll benefit.
You're going to be in a great spot for your league. So I think that's kind of the way to take to move forward here with the episode.
Yeah, I think you're right. And we did talk about that. Preface, this is pre-training camp. We will be releasing another wide receiver episode later on after all the dust settles, so to speak, and we move people around. But I'm comfortable with where we went through today, and I'm excited for the next one to hammer out the rest of it and to talk about any movement.
Yeah, I think those are different. I think that's a different episode. So I don't know. We'll have to talk about how we want to do that, but. There are some team specific wide receiver rooms. Let me just get this light up here. You guys can see my beautiful face a little better.
The Seahawks is another one of those wide receiver rooms.
Seahawks.
You're absolutely right.
We got to figure out the quarterback situation there first. I mean, I'm still under the thought process that Geno Smith is such dog shit that Sam Howell can step in and just look so much better than him. It's crazy to me that people still think Geno Smith is a good quarterback, but apparently he's a starter there. That's another room. Obviously, there's like what is going on with the Broncos.
What's going on with the Patriots?
What's going on with the Chargers?
The Chargers, dude. How do we not talk about the Chargers? Yeah, there's a lot.
So I think. I don't know how much we want to dive into that. I think there's guys we need to each talk about and then kind of go from there. We don't need a 3-hour episode, but, Jahan Dotson is someone that I have as wide receiver 54. Talked about him a little bit earlier with talking about Daniels. There's value in these Redskins players, skill players. If you can, hang your hat on one of them, I think Dotson is just such a good receiver. Think about... I'm going to say Keenan Allen, and I don't want to show any disrespect to Keenan, but similar style of just like getting open in space and being a sure-handed receiver for a guy like Jaden Daniels who likes to get out of the pocket and make plays happen on the run. I think Jahan Dotson is a great complement to that. I think we've heard a lot about Luke McCaffrey early on, and those two are building a lot of chemistry together. So, sure, maybe he's the guy that takes that role, and I could definitely see that to a certain extent. But I do think Dotson is way more talented. That's why one guy played at Penn State and another played at fucking Rice with the last name McCaffrey. So, put about as much. People just get hard over McCaffrey. It's nepotism, classic nepotism in America, and maybe there is a little bit to him and him being a McCaffrey and wanting to live up to the name and show that he's not just a name and he really has that much heart and spirit, and he's willing to suck Jaden's dick good enough that just like Edelman sucked Brady's to where they rise. But, Dotson, from a pure talent standpoint, is the better receiver. So that's where I'm hanging my hat in that offense.
I'm clipping that.
Mario Douglas, another guy. I was high on Pop Douglas. Truck, you remember he was on about every taxi squad I ever had. Douglas. Douglas is a guy who just is so shifty and has those quick twitch skills that you cannot teach. And because of that, Drake May is going to come in and find the guys that he likes, and it may be some of those rookies in Baker and Polk. I think they're both talented. I think Polk's awesome. He was in a receiver room with Rome, with Jalen McMillan, and Polk, and I think they're all going to be awesome receivers in the NFL. It's just I think DeMario, we've heard a little bit from OTAs that he's just looks far and wide the best wide receiver there. So I think the cream kind of rises to the top, and Drake May will develop that with him. I mean, he's only a second-year receiver, so if he is as good as advertised, he should be the one that comes out. And if he does, you can get him at wide receiver. I don't know. I have him at 60, and I'm high at him, and he'll be a wide receiver 1 on his football team.
Yeah, you're the lowest on Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas, and Jahan Dotson. I found that interesting because you're high on them, and so are we. And it's we love these guys, so I'm excited to see what they do.
Best ball brain, yeah. Best
ball brain.
But according to his ADP in best ball, I'm very high on him in these rankings. So I don't know if I'll ever change away from best ball brain. So these might just be the rankings you get out of me, and you got to listen to me talk more than just like look at the Substack and see where I have rankings. But that's where I'm at currently. I'll have to go and do some ayahuasca and see where I end up with my rankings to try to realign some things there. But, that's where I'm at right now. Yeah, I mean, I want you guys to talk about anyone that you want to highlight.
Why don't we just do one late guy? We'll do one late guy each.
Okay, fair enough. Shane, why don't you go ahead and I'll kick it over to you, Shane.
So the one late guy, I think that I'm starting to target more towards, and I think I'm higher than consensus on, is Demarcus Robinson from the Rams.
I've heard a lot of hype about him.
I think when I was looking at it last year, his last 5 games he played, there was an obvious shift that he was being played ahead of Tutu Atwell, that he was the number 3 receiver. In his last 5 games, he was wide receiver 29 or better. So I think he comes in and as the number 3 receiver in this offense. And if something happens to Cooper Kupp, then you're just looking at even a bigger potential target share for him. So I think he's like one of the better, cheapest guys you can get late in drafts.
Yeah, I saw something about the Rams. I said it on a best ball stream the other day. Truck and I were talking about Demarcus Robinson, and I was like, man, he's one of those guys that the industry's talking about a lot on Twitter. There's a lot of steam with him right now, and I just think he's a swing and a miss type guy. But then I saw a stat about how the Rams run 3 wide receiver sets like significantly more than the rest of the league, and it starts to become a little bit interesting. Now he's got to have the talent. I guess I need to watch more tape on him to see if that talent exists. That's kind of why I look at myself as a very good fantasy analyst, as a very good football analyst, is because I can see that talent. So I just need to look and see if that exists, or if it's just like he's got a little bit of speed and he's got Stafford throwing him the ball, because we've seen what his arm can do to players. So, if the talent exists, then Shane, you're right. He's going to be a guy that needs to take a serious look, because he's going to be on the field and he has a Hall of Famer throwing him the ball. So I can't comment whether he has that or not, because quite honestly, I haven't seen him enough. But it's definitely an interesting prospect in terms of like being someone late that you should throw a dart at, especially in a keeper league. If that talent does exist in a keeper league, he's someone that, as Shane mentioned, could pop off this year and then next year be the wide receiver 2 next to Puka,
Yeah, definitely. The guy I will bring up is someone I'm targeting later on in drafts that I think has upside, is Joshua Palmer. What were you going to talk about him?
Maybe? No.
Oh, no. I was going to leave Burton for you. I figured you wanted to talk about Burton. Yeah. I'll talk about Burton, no problem.
Yeah,
I love
you talk about Burton.
I'll talk about Burton. So Jermaine Burton, we saw what Tyler Boyd was able to do with this Bengals offense. He had a solid wide receiver 3 role in this offense where he was on the verge of being rosterable any given week. And I think Jermaine Burton has the talent to come in and really kind of settle into that wide receiver 3 role. And not to mention, if anything, God forbid, if anything happened to T. Higgins, Jermaine Burton would be a league winner. And he's someone I'm willing to target later on in drafts. I think he is going to have standalone value. And I do think that T. Higgins is going to be on his way out. And you're just in line for an ascension for Jermaine Burton. In a keeper league, he's someone I'll be targeting later. And I'm excited to see. I'm high on Burrow and the Bengals. And I think Burton is going to be an intricate piece for years to come. I'm excited about the talent.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a huge deep threat for that team, and I think he has a great season. I was surprised when they went and got him in the draft because I think they liked Yosivas. Is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm. Good.
So, I think they liked his talent a lot. I think, Charlie, give me his last name, Charlie Miller, Charlie Henry. What's Charlie's name? The white guy? Slot?
On the Bengals?
Yeah, you don't know.
I picked him up one week and I was like, dude, I'm starting him. And then he scores a touchdown and then does nothing the rest of the game. That was Charlie Jones. Not Charlie Jones. I was literally
Purdue.
about to say that.
He was that slot out of Purdue. He's still really good and he's going to be involved in that offense. Same with Yosivas. I thought that they were set at wide receiver. This might be Burton stepping into that wide receiver 2 role once Higgins leaves, and then Yosivas and Charlie find their spot in the offense full time. But Burton looks like he's establishing that chemistry with Burrow. Burrow's one of these arms that can make these guys start off to very hot starts. So I love Burton as well. I think that's a great pick as a late flyer. Corley is someone that is said to have been living with Rodgers, and Rodgers could be his Randall Cobb 2.0, younger, more athletic version. When Rodgers is another quarterback, when he takes a liking to you, he can immediately put you on the map as an elite wide receiver, and I think that happens with Corley. So he's someone that I would be targeting. And then the other one I want to mention is Mims, just because I think if you get the right guy in this offense, then you're going to be in a good spot. Franklin does have the chemistry with Bo Nix. Mims is a guy that I think has way more talent, just pure talent. He should be involved in the offense, and they're going to try to get him the ball as many times as they can. I know Peyton went up in draft. He went up in the draft to get Mims because he wanted that type of playmaker in the offense. This is going to be a year that's the team shouldn't be good on paper, but is Sean Payton one of the best coaches in the NFL? Then he's going to turn water into wine with that team and that offense, and it has to start happening this year. So if it does, I'm going to bet on Peyton being a good NFL quarterback or coach, and if that's the case, then he evaluated Nix the right way, and Mims is the guy in that offense that at least that big play receiver that I'm targeting. So that's why I have Mims at 61.
Yeah, great point. I love the player.
Yep.
All right, well, if you've made it this far with us, okay.
I got one other
Go
thing.
ahead.
This is a Scott Fishbowl thing. Xavier Gibson, Shane, I see him here on your board.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to draft him in this next round coming up because he's going to be the punt returner and kick returner, right? Almost guaranteed.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many guaranteed kick returner and punt returner players left. I think Gibson is that guy. So if he even has any kind of a role in that offense, then he's going to be a huge value in Scott Fishbowl. So
well, and quite honestly, I heard so much. I know it's just the mini camps, but he was the talk of the mini camps. He was the one making plays. Yeah.
I wish
I remember seeing him last year in Hard Knocks. He was making plays on Hard Knocks, and he was getting a lot of hype. So
we just got an update.
That's great.
Daniel Popper of the Athletics sees that Gus Edwards is the clear lead back for the LA Chargers. It doesn't fucking matter what you think, Daniel Popper, you little bitch. Never mind. I was thinking that was gonna be
something juicy,
an insider. Yeah, fuck you, Daniel Popper, with your clickbait.
Is he a beat writer?
Shit. Yeah, I mean, no, that's not his fault. That's Sleeper's fault for putting that as a
Sleeper. I will
notification that
say
people need.
Sleeper, the way Sleeper sends out notifications, I'm about ready to silence all of them. Sleeper has been trash lately.
I thought they
you
were
gotta
like
step
amazing
your
at one
shit up.
point, and now
They
they're just
were,
like
dude. 2
throwing
years
shit out
ago-
there because they
dude,
want you to open the app.
Yeah.
2 years ago, Sleeper was elite with their notifications, with their blurbs they were coming out with. I was all about it, and then I don't know what happened the last 2 years. It's just been going downhill.
What an
And I'm
episode. We're ending it with a PSA to Sleeper, Fantasy Roadshow PSA to Sleeper. You're turning into fucking ESPN with your bullshit that you're sending us in these notifications. Step your shit up, get back to facts, quit doing this fucking clickbait app, dragging us into the app bullshit, and get back to your roots.
How about your reaction when you saw towards the end of the year last year where they replaced Puka Nakua with a Pikachu? And they started replacing all of these images randomly with different stuff. Like, just stop it. You're doing too much. Step your shit up, okay?
That almost made me say bad words that would get us canceled. So let's.
All right, let's cut it. Let's cut it. I'm gonna go eat some food. I am officially over my 72-hour fast.
Let's go.
I am proud of myself for doing it, and
Nice.
I appreciate the support with you guys. So I'm gonna go max out some chicken and veggies right now.
Let's
I'm pretty excited about that. Here,
let's give.
How about
congrats.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Let's
give some fireworks, baby. Fireworks.
Give Shane and I a little bit of credit here because we made this episode. I texted him earlier. I said, let's do a 2-hour episode so Truck doesn't even think about food for his final 2 hours.
I tell you what, dude, up until this point, I was like, oh shit, I got food. I'm about to go eat it right now. I've been totally distracted. This was a great 2-hour recording. It's a bit long, but this is a very important topics that we need to cover. So I'm glad you guys stuck through it. Please like the video. It helps us out. Subscribe to the channel. Share the podcast with other people and other friends that you guys got. So really helps us out. We're trying to grow here and do some great work for you. So you roadies are the best, and everybody buckle up.
Love you, Raising Canes.